May 10th, 0611 local time, Gibraltar. A dark shape slides through the strait under escort. No press briefing, no advance notice. Royal Marines had been flown in by RAF transport the day before. Gibraltar Defense Police locked the South Mole. A 200-meter exclusion zone went up the moment it docked. The U.S. Navy then did something it almost never does. It told the world exactly where one of its nuclear submarines was. The Sixth Fleet put out a press release, confirmed the arrival, described the vessel's capabilities in print. For an asset that is specifically designed to never be seen, never be located, and never be acknowledged, that press release was the most deliberate move in this story. And it had nothing to do with transparency. It had everything to do with Tehran. To understand the weight of that move, you need to know what these submarines actually are and what they're built to do. The USS Alaska is an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine. The Navy calls it an SSBN. Crews call it a boomer. It is 170 meters long, 18,750 tons submerged. It carries up to 20 Trident 2D5 missiles. Each missile can carry multiple independently targetable nuclear warheads. One submarine, running silent under the Atlantic, can strike dozens of cities on different continents, with no warning and no possibility of being stopped before launch. That's the entire design philosophy: not to fight, to survive, to exist somewhere underwater, undetected, for months at a time, so that no matter what happens to American soil, no matter how bad it gets, there is always a response in the water that nobody can find. The Pentagon almost never says where they are. It is official policy going back decades. The locations of Ohio-class submarines are classified at the highest levels. So when the 6th Fleet Press Office confirmed one had docked in Gibraltar, openly, in a written statement, they weren't informing the press. They were sending a message to one specific audience. The timing was not accidental, not even close. One day before the submarine docked, President Trump rejected Iran's latest ceasefire counterproposal on Truth Social. His exact words, "totally unacceptable." The next morning he declared the ceasefire on life support. Iran had asked for war reparations, recognition of its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, an end to all sanctions, the right to keep part of its uranium enrichment program. Washington's position had not moved: restrict the enrichment, hand over the highly enriched uranium stockpiles, reopen the strait to commercial shipping. The two positions are not close. And into that gap, while negotiations were publicly collapsing, America parked a nuclear submarine at the entrance to the Mediterranean and told everyone it was there. The 6th Fleet statement described Ohio, and I'm quoting their own words, undetectable launch platforms for submarine-launched ballistic missiles, providing the U.S. with its most survivable leg of the nuclear triad. That's the U.S. military describing the destructive capability of its own nuclear weapons, in a press release, on purpose. Here's the part most coverage missed. This isn't just a diplomatic signal. It's happening alongside a live submarine standoff, right now, under the water. Inside the same 48-hour window that the USS Alaska docked at Gibraltar, Iran's Navy commander, Rear Admiral Shahram Irani, publicly confirmed that domestically produced light submarines have been deployed inside the Strait of Hormuz, at heightened combat readiness. He called them the Persian Gulf Dolphins. Iranian state media called them trigger-ready. These are Ghadir-class midget submarines. Each one carries a crew of fewer than 10 sailors, armed with either 2 heavyweight torpedoes or 2 Chinese-designed C-704 anti-ship cruise missiles, purpose-built for shallow, constrained sea lanes like the Strait of Hormuz, exactly the kind of water where a larger submarine cannot maneuver, cannot gain speed, and cannot easily escape. The announcement was made during a naval exercise held specifically to honor the dead from the IRIS Dena. That name matters, because 2 months ago, a U.S. submarine did something it had not done since the last days of World War II. March 4th, Indian Ocean, 0508 local time. A distress call goes out from the IRIS Dena, an Iranian Navy frigate, 19 nautical miles off the coast of Gal, Sri Lanka. Call reports an explosion. The ship is reporting an explosion because two Mark 48 torpedoes from the USS Charlotte, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine, just hit it. The Dena had been returning home from an international naval exercise hosted by India. It was in international waters, reportedly unarmed or lightly armed, because naval exercises require participants to operate without live ammunition. The ship had a crew of 136 sailors. The Dena sank within 2 to 3 minutes of the attack. 104 of its crew were killed. 32 were pulled from the water by the Sri Lanka Navy. The Department of Defense released the periscope footage, a frigate lifting out of the water from the blast, then sinking almost vertically. The first such footage from a U.S. submarine in 80 years. Submarine historians and veterans called it what it was: the first time an American submarine had torpedoed an enemy vessel since 1945. Former Navy Admiral James Fogo wrote that the sinking sent a direct message not just to Iran, but to Russia and China, both watching us undersea warfare capability with great care. Iran's response was the Ghadir deployment into the strait. The message from Tehran was plain enough. You sank one of ours. We have submarines in the water right now, and our missiles can reach your destroyers. 3 Australian sailors were aboard the USS Charlotte when it fired. They were on rotation as part of AUKUS, the security partnership under which the United States will eventually supply Australia with nuclear-powered submarines. Australian officers had been training at the Naval Submarine School in Groton. The first group graduated in 2024. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed their presence on March 6 and stated that the Australian personnel did not participate in any offensive action. British reporting said the 3 were ordered to remain in their sleeping quarters during the attack. Their presence aboard a submarine that just made history by killing 104 Iranian sailors during a war their country is not officially a party sparked immediate political debate in Australia. The debate has not fully resolved. Zoom out, and what you are looking at is 2 sides exchanging undersea deterrence signals across 2 separate ocean theaters simultaneously, with the Indian Ocean already having seen what American torpedoes can do. In the Indian Ocean, the USS Charlotte proved that U.S. submarines can intercept, track, and sink Iranian warships, with no warning, no opportunity to respond, and no survivors from command. The footage exists. Precedent is set. In Gibraltar, the USS Alaska is sitting at the entrance to the Mediterranean, with enough nuclear warheads to end a civilization, positioned where every satellite, every intelligence agency, and every government in Tehran can see it. Defense analysts are calling it a calculated escalate, to de-escalate move. Make the cost of Iranian miscalculation so catastrophically visible that the negotiating table looks survivable by comparison. Iran's counter is to put between 10 and 16 Ghadir midget submarines into the Strait of Hormuz. Submarines that can sit on the seabed, powered down, silent, connected to their operators by a fiber optic cable, and invisible to every sensor looking for electronic emissions, waiting, and threatening to close the strait entirely, the choke point through which 20% of the world's oil passes every single day. Oil prices are already up 12% since the war began. The Royal Navy is moving a destroyer toward the Middle East. The French carrier Charles de Gaulle transited the Suez Canal last week. Allied defense ministers met Tuesday to plan a multinational escort mission for commercial shipping through the strait. The architecture of a coalition naval operation is assembling in the background, quietly, while the main event plays out in press releases and periscope footage. Here is where this stands right now. America deliberately surfaced one of its most classified weapons, publicly, at one of the most photographed ports in the world, while ceasefire negotiations were collapsing in real time. The press release used the word nuclear. The message was for one audience. Iran simultaneously deployed combat-ready midget submarines into the world's most critical oil choke point, and held a memorial exercise for 104 sailors, killed by an American torpedo 8 weeks ago. Neither side is pulling back. The water between them is as dangerous as it has been at any point in this conflict, and the USS Alaska is still in Gibraltar, carrying, waiting. If you want the full breakdown of the Charlotte strike, the moment a U.S. submarine killed an enemy ship for the first time since World War II. That's the next video. Hit subscribe and I'll see you there.